Jack here, JBF Music and Guitar Lessons. I'm back with one of these critique videos. So essentially this is like an informal analysis, and as a disclaimer that I've just started saying from the beginning here, I will pause it, I'll talk about what's going on. So if you want someone to react and not really comment on it, this probably isn't for you. Same if you just want to watch the original video. However, if you want to learn something, maybe get some insights and break down the music theory in a way that's hopefully quite understandable, then stick around. If you want to see more of this thing, keep up to date with the channel, do the old subscribe and enable all notifications thing. If you enjoy it, please let me know with a like and a comment. On the flip side, if you don't like it, feel free to hit dislike, but if you can let me know more specifically what you don't like, I can take it on board and at least potentially do something about it. So what I've got up here is Warning by Bandmaid, which I'm sure you probably gathered by the title. So this again has been one of the more kind of commonly suggested ones. I think I've managed to find a live video here. Fingers crossed I've not messed up there. Well, this is my first time hearing this song. This isn't the first I've heard of the band. If you want to get that reaction though, and that kind of critique of the song Domination, you can get that with the eye up there. But far too much from me, as usual. I've rabbited on far too long. Let's just listen to these ladies here, Okay, it's not often that a song that quickly and throws me for a loop, but they've done it, so hats off and credit where it's due. I'm guessing this is a sample rather than someone jumping onto the keyboard, but we'll find out. So there's a thing I talked about in the Domination, their song, where they kind of combine these almost like kind of, it's like drum and bass-esque or kind of like dance music, maybe industrial if you want to put it that way, aesthetics with a rock music thing, and I kind of broke it down in the concepts part of it. I put some effects on the guitar, and this is the kind of thing that I was getting at. This wouldn't sound too out of place on like a kind of a jungle record, but you know, obviously being played by kind of like a synth or like an 808 rather than a guitar. They're doing a really cool thing there in the first beat of every bar, like 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 4, as well as the vocal going on. The harmony was coming in over the top, so it really makes that kind of beat pop. It's actually a really common thing to do in funk music. A lot of the time the instruments are playing on different beats. This is a slightly skewed analogy, but they play on different beats of the bar, and that's what makes it funky. You might have the drums just holding down a basic thing, guitar maybe going chit chit chit, you know, kind of syncopating, so chit 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 chit. You might have something like that. But what generally happens is all the instruments come back in on that first beat of the bar, so you can still keep dancing to it and nodding your head. So it's just a nice way of accentuating where the strongest kind of beat of the bar is. Cool. Again, it's this. I think I prefer these songs of theirs where it's like just, it's really quite dense and quite rich harmonically and melodically. So there you have this really nice little lead line. Again, it's reminding me of kind of like anime outros and stuff like that. And it's giving you just enough interest that there's something cool going on, but it's not getting in the way of the vocals. Again, this is kind of a difficult thing to do, to have like this more kind of melodic passage at the same time as the vocals, and them still have enough space that you can hear them clearly. They're not stepping on each other's toes. It's really nice songwriting. She's doing that nice rasp again where she's bringing in a kind of distortion of the vocal fry over the top, you know, that kind of stuff. Some pretty impressive double bass work going on with the drum as well. There's, so when the guitar's doing that do 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 do, the drums were kind of going along with the kick drums, which takes a lot of stamina and a lot of power to do. really quite sporadic in places. The music, they'll just do these really kind of like a bridge that maybe just lasts a bar or two. It just gives the song a whole new pulp. But in terms of remembering this stuff and playing it is really quite difficult. I remember years ago, this is a much bigger example, but when Dream Theater were looking for a different drummer when Mike Portnoy left, I think this was before they got Mike Mangini, and one of the drummers I was in a band with was like, you have to have, as well as the chops, you have to have a really good memory to play all that stuff. And while Dream Theater are kind of in a league of their own in that kind of thing, when you have songs that don't conform to the kind of standard, here's 4 intro, here's 4 verse, here's maybe a pre-chorus, a chorus, verse, chorus, bridge, or solo, chorus, outro. When you have lots of songs that have much more twists and turns in them, it is a lot more on your memory to keep them in there. It's someone who's played more standard stuff or more complex stuff. When you're doing particularly longer sets of the more complicated songs, even just in terms of structure, it is difficult to remember and do. So I have nothing but praise for people that can get up and just play it as well as this. This is something I really love as well. I do it my own stuff all the time. You go half time. So what they've done here is musically the pitched instruments, so your guitars, bass, are kind of doing pretty much the same thing. The drums have cut the beat in half. So rather than being umta 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 umta, they've got like a doom doom, and it just gives this kind of extra head bobbing kind of groove thing. It makes you want to move more. It makes it sound a bit heavier. I just love that as a writing trick. And then if you contrast it with one of these beats where I think she's playing the snare, so that's the kind of drum that's going like making that kind of sound. She's either playing it on every beat, so dun 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 dun, or playing it on the one. And I'll have a quick listen. So hitting the snare on the one and the kick drum after that. So normally in drum beats you kind of get this boom, boom, but here we're getting this boom, boom. So it just gives us again a different sense of energy. So rather than being that half time thing, which is a bit more groovy, this is a bit more frantic and a bit more drive, and it kind of wants to push the song forward. Cool, so underneath the solo there's some sort of effect going on. I can't quite hear if it's just the guitar single being doubled an octave below, so that'd be the exact same notes she's playing going into some effect pedal, and it's playing the same thing but the pitch has been shifted so it's lower, or if there's a harmony in there, I can't quite pick up from the monitor here. I think it's just being doubled an octave below. And again, this kind of feeds into this slightly more kind of drum and bass or electronic aesthetic that pops up in their songs. Really nice singing and great harmonies as usual. Everything's in the pocket, as I've come to expect from the handful of songs that I've listened to. They've set the bar quite high, though, is the thing, and they've managed to maintain it. Okay, so just before it kicks in, there's a really nice thing going on with the rhythm part here. It sounds, if I'm wrong, I'll correct myself here with some text, but it sounds very much like she's using ninth chords or sus2, so it might be in a drop D tuning here. Basically, a note, it's fifth, and then a note that is somewhat dissonant, so it sounds a wee bit tense with the root of the chord, but because it works really well with the fifth, you get this kind of nice combination of the two, where it's got a little bit of edge, but it's also kind of mellow. Ninths are a really good way of getting like a slight mellow vibe while still keeping a bit of an edge to it. And again, it's this thing where I was expecting that bridge to go on for a bit longer, but no, they just give you like kind of 4 bars of a bridge, then back into it. So in the lead there, we've had this in some other songs as well. She's doing octaves, so playing a note and then playing the same note higher. I think I'd referenced pop punk when I talked about this before. It's a great way of making a kind of slightly more melodic lead thing, because when you play a chord when there's a note other than, as a way to explain this, say she's playing a power chord in the land of guitar, means you got a note, you got a note above it, it's fifth, and then the same note again. There's more harmonic content, it's a little more dense and rich. If you miss out the fifth, it's a fairly simple thing to do, but it makes the part you're playing less harmonically dense, it can work with more things, and it makes it kind of pop a bit more as well. Although she does sound like she's got an octave pedal on, so she might not have been playing octaves, it might have been the octave pedal doubling it. I would need to rewatch that to double check. And again, it just looks like they're having a ball, looks like they're having a really fun time. Now, there's some of the comments had said a while ago they were trying to put on a gig, but they couldn't. So they filmed the whole thing, and I'm wondering if this is from it, because it only dawned on me there was no shots of the audience, which is really unusual for a live performance. Normally they cut to the audience. The cynical view is they do that to show you pictures of people having a good time, so you in turn go, oh, they're having a good time, I must be having a good time, and you start to enjoy it more. If you take the Talking Heads, David Byrne, one of their live DVDs, he refused to have any shots of the audience, and that was his reasoning, was it'll trick people into think they're having a good time, and I want them to just enjoy the show for itself. And again, a testament to their songwriting and musicianship that I didn't need the crowd, the shots of the crowd to trick me into enjoying it. But yeah, as always, I'm going to break down some of the things that happened there. I've got quite a bit to choose from, so hopefully I'll find stuff that is interesting to you. Cool, the first thing I want to break down here is that really nice tiny bridge that used the aforementioned ninth chords. So in terms of the tone and the guitar sound, there's two things that could be going on here. First of all, what you might have done is just gone to what you call the clean channel on the amp. So it does what it sounds like. It sounds cleaner, it's less distorted. The other thing you can do is you can use a bit of pot control. I've covered this before, so you can check that out up there if I've got any cards left. And basically what I've got just now is a fairly driven sound if I just play a chord. So a fair bit of distortion on there. I am in drop D tuning, so again I've taken this E string, dropped it down a tone from an E to a D, because I think that's the tuning they're in. It makes these ninth chords easier to play as well. But what you can do is you can just use, as I say, pot control. So let's just play this open chord here and roll the volume down. You can hear it cleans up the sound, so it's spot. Not quite as much distortion on it. It also sounds to me like she's on the neck pickup, which again will give you a kind of smoother, creamier tone. So the chords we have are... So just by contrast, say if I put myself on the bridge pickup, roll in my volume, you get a much heavier tone, but like I say, easy to clean it up. So in terms of the notes that we're holding down, you've got the 4th fret on what used to be the E string, we'll call it the 6th string, 4th fret on the 5th string, and 6th fret on the 4th string. So you're kind of barring across here and holding this note down on top. And you just move the shape up, move it up so it's in 7, 7 and 9. Then all the way up here so it's on 12, 12 and 14. So the theory behind the chord here is basically, it's essentially a power chord shape. If you know drop D tuning at all, you'll know that you can get a power chord, a root, a fifth, and then the root again, just by holding your finger on these bottom 3 strings. So what we're doing here by putting this finger down is raising the root up by a tone. So that gives you the aforementioned ninth or a second. So you've got a root, a fifth, and a ninth. So if you play, for example, the root and the ninth together, it's quite tense, right? If you play the 5th and the 9th together, however, it's pretty consonant. And if we play the root and the fifth together as well, that's going to sound pretty constant. So because there's a kind of a nice relationship between the ninth and the fifth, they're in fact a fifth apart, it means the chord itself sounds quite nice and lush, even though there's this dissonance in it. Because this interval plays nice with this one, and this one plays nice with this one. You get this really nice mellow sound going on. And just before we move on from that, the Police song Message in a Bottle, that's a great example of these ninth chords in action. Okay, first of all I'm going to break down the notes and then talk about the octave effect I think is on the top of it. So we're starting off in the 17th fret on the B. I think you pull off to the 14th, it might be picked. It just, I can't totally make out from the live performance what was picked and what was pulled off. Just do whatever is easiest to yourself because it's going to sound pretty much the same. But I'm going with what is kind of the most intuitive and what kind of sounds right to me. So you got that. Then we got the 16th to the 14th. You're going to hit that and pull off. Then do the same thing again. 16, pull off to 14. So you have... Then I think there's a slide here because there's definitely one time I could hear a slide when she's going from the 16 to the 18, still on the G string. So... Then you're going to pick the 16, 14, down to 13, all on a G string, 14, and maybe a tiny bit of vibrato if you feel like it. There's a variation that seems to happen the second time, at least in the part I was listening to, where we start off the same, and then we go down to here, at 14th fret on the D. A wee bit slower. Okay, so you might hear I've got a kind of slightly weird effect on already. This is a kind of like a fuzz overdrive. You get a slightly kind of glitchy, weird distortion with that. So you might not be using a fuzz, but it sounds a bit like it might have that going on to me. The other thing I think is being used is an octave pedal. So I'm just going to play a note without it on, and then bring it in. Right, so hopefully you can hear, here's it off. Play the note again, let's bring it back on. You can hear this extra underneath. What it's doing is it's taking the note, it's duplicating it, digitally, and then dropping it down an octave. So rather than just playing this note, what the effect is doing is putting this note underneath it. It's the same note, right? It's just an octave lower. So when you put that on, you get this slightly kind of beefier, more like electronic kind of sound. So what you could do is you could just play it in octaves. I've not had a go at this, so you might have to bear with me what we're doing. So you could... You could just do that. Oh, I'm in drop D. There we go. Yeah, when you're in drop D, your octave shape changes from this to this. Should have remembered that there. But as you can probably tell, that's quite slidey, it's a bit sloppy. If you put on your effect, you can keep things a lot slicker, a lot tighter. The other thing I want to touch on here is how I'd kind of talked about the drums doing a standard beat, what you can kind of call an inverted beat, and also a halftime thing. Well, it changes with the section of the song, just to give you an idea of how much changing the drums can really impact the overall feel. What I'm going to do is just have that, the lick, I'm just going to have that looped, and I'm going to change the drum beats over the top of it, and hopefully you can kind of see, hear and feel how just impactful and how much of a determining factor in the overall sound they have. Alright, a quick rundown of the drums. You got this big beefy one in the middle here, it's the kick drum or the bass drum. To the left you got the snare, so that provides that kind of crack sound, so you know your basic beat, that kind of thing. To the left again we got the hi-hat, So we're going to hear that a little bit in the first 2 beats. Just kind of keeps the tempo. Then we've got these ones here, which are called crash cymbals. It's great. They're really onomatopoeic. It sounds like a crash. And they kind of add in a bit more excitement. So we're going to hear those in the halftime version as well. So first up here is the basic beat with the guitar line. Okay, so you can hear that's pretty standard. What we're going to do is to invert the beat. So hopefully you can hear and see that snare is coming in on 1. And we're going to go half time, you'll feel that real kind of groove. And hopefully you can hear that big crash cymbal being hit as well. Hit subscribe if you want to keep up to date with the channel. You can check out the playlist there or different videos there. But yeah, take it easy guys. Have a good one.